Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. And welcome to another edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the intern himself, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to discuss, so let's waste no time. Hashtag ODPHEE if you're going to join in the conversation on social media. Biggest story of the week has to be Solo and its debut at the box office. And what was the general thoughts from you, being the Star Wars aficionado that you are, Pad?
I enjoyed the movie. Not the greatest thing in the world, not the worst thing in the world. It had its issues. It was by no means a perfect movie, but it's one that, I definitely enjoyed. Is it necessarily a movie I'm going to throw in the rotation anytime I go to do a rewatch, but right before episode 9 is coming out? Am I going to throw it into the rotation as my prep or my, get ready for episode 9? Probably not. Well, is it something I'll throw on every now and then? Maybe.
It was one of those movies that it had a certain, je ne sais quoi, if you will. Mm-hmm. That, as you listen to the show, we do talk spoilers, so be forewarned. Solo came out and did the whole background story of Han Solo and his debut, I guess, into the Star Wars universe.
Well, and I will say it did check off one thing in my box that I wanted it to do. It gave you a little bit of his past, but it didn't tell everything.
It didn't say everything. It said the Kessel Run, and it said the card game where he won the Millennium Falcon from Lando.
Yep.
That was the two things that I thought going into it, that's what I was going to look most forward to. And then everything else is, I don't want to say filler, but I really wanted to see the direction the film was going to go in.
Sure.
And as it was progressing, I don't know, maybe it's just me, and I'm not meaning this in a bad thing. I don't mean this in a good thing. I just mean this as it is what it is. It really felt Disney-esque more than Star Wars-esque to me.
They definitely threw a lot of bones at fans like myself who have read the various expanded universe books, both new canon and mostly old canon. There were definitely some callbacks to, some of the older stuff. There was, there was some throws to the new canon as well. I mean, there was the giant surprise cameo that myself, the Star Wars guy, didn't even see coming in Darth Maul appearing.
No, that one I definitely had to say I was surprised to see.
Yeah, so was I, because I figured, and I said as much to you, I knew there was going to be a cameo in the movie, but I did everything I could, and I successfully avoided knowing who it was. Unfortunately, I knew somebody who didn't, but they were polite enough to not say who it was. They just said, you'll be surprised by it. Okay, so I figured it was going to be Boba Fett, because that same day the movie came out was when the news started coming out that the director, whose name I'm blanking on, who directed...
James Mangold.
Thank you. James Mangold was going to direct a not a Logan movie, a Boba Fett movie. So I'm figuring, okay, the cameo in the movie's got to be Boba Fett, because why else would this news come out on the same day that the movie is coming out? You had any other day you could do this, and this comes out the same day. So I figured it was going to be Boba Fett. So you get to the scene where Kira has betrayed Han, ready to run off and do whatever she wants to do. Hologram appears, and I'll admit, I didn't realize it was Maul at first. I heard the voice. I thought it might be Palpatine. Because I was hearing kind of that, raspy, old-sounding voice. And now, to be fair, the gentleman who voiced him, Darth Maul, in this movie was Sam Witwer, who has also done the voice of the Emperor in Star Wars The Force Unleashed video game. So that may be why I was thinking that he's also done the Emperor. But then he's sitting there, and I realized, oh, this isn't the Emperor. Oh, this isn't Boba Fett. And I think I gasped out loud when he pulled the hood back and it was, Darth Maul sitting there. And the thing I loved, and I don't know if you caught this, I loved the little musical cue they gave in the movie for fans who were like, wait, is that him? If you go and rewatch the movie when it comes out, listen for the musical cue. They play a little bit of Duel of the Fates.
Okay.
Dun, 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 like very slowly, very quietly, just to like wink, wink, nod, nod. That's who you think it is.
It was a very nice cameo, and I think it's something they need, because if this is going to be the start of a trilogy, and I don't know if that's going to be the case.
Who's to say? I don't know.
It's kind of still open-ended. It's a nice addition to that aspect of the universe, because for me, Darth Maul was a lot of hype and didn't deliver in the movies. And I hated that. I mean, The Phantom Menace, I cannot even go into words of how much I dislike that movie.
He was a good part of that movie, significantly underutilized, I feel.
Yeah, and I think to put him in that role and to underutilize him as badly as they did, that kind of tarnished his legacy. So to see him come back in this aspect on the big screen, because I know he's done some stuff on Rebels and
yeah, he first reappeared in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, an animated series that you can find all 6 seasons of on Netflix, and it was a total surprise because everyone thought he was dead. But, for those who don't know, he survived through sheer force of will, being, the dark side and his hate and revenge he wanted to get on Obi-Wan, and he survived. And, I mean, you can go and watch the series. It's a fantastic series, and he's been alive up to now. As you look at the canon, spoiler alert, he dies fairly close up to Episode 4, A New Hope. Basically, he sees a vision in the series Star Wars Rebels, where he basically he doesn't know the full details, but he knows there's some kids out there who can take down the Emperor and can take down the Empire, and he wants to find them. And he knows they're on Tatooine, but that's about all he knows. So he goes looking, and Obi-Wan, being the guardian he is of Luke, shows up and confronts Maul and ends up killing him. But to see him on screen for me was a giant surprise and a very welcome thing, because for me, and I know there's a lot of people who I'm friends with who have enjoyed the animated series over the years, that they had wanted to see some animated characters on the screen, but they weren't quite sure how they were going to do it or if they were ever going to do it. This, to me, and I know to a lot of people, is kind of exciting that they're not afraid to do it and they can find a way to do it. Now, for me, do they have to do it? No. Is it cool if they end up doing it? Yeah, sure.
It makes sense because, I mean, the general story of Solo is very simple because it was him leaving his planet. He gets involved with smugglers. He gets kind of shown into the outlaw smuggling trade.
Yeah.
And he gets really kind of involved with the Empire and Crimson Dawn. And just how that whole transpires is just really kind of something to see.
I'll say it definitely feels like a Western movie with a band of misfits trying to pull a job off, and everything that can go wrong in the midst of that does.
Yeah, for me, it just felt too Disneyized, if I can use that word. I'm making up words every weekend here on the show.
Yeah, you are.
But for me, it just felt like that because, I don't know, like, it just had a different vibe to it. But it wasn't one that I was, like, really blown away by. It wasn't one that was like, okay.
It almost struck me as something that it's kind of like you're going to take that first step into a swimming pool, and you're like, oh, this is a little cold. So you're dipping your toe in. This, to me, it felt like it was dipping its toe in because you know who Han is, you know who Chewie is. They made reference to a crime lord on Tatooine, cough, cough, Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
They made reference to him. It felt to me, if they do end up going with a trilogy with this, they were definitely setting up a lot of things that would, build off of or flourish into something more in a sequel.
It would make more sense to do it in a trilogy if they can pull it off, albeit though the box office numbers were not the greatest per se. I
chalk that up to, and let me ask you this question. How much marketing do you think there was for this movie?
It was a decent amount, but the problem I think that ultimately it was moviegoer fatigue.
A little bit, I'll give you that, but I think a portion of it goes to there wasn't a ton of marketing with this. I mean, I remember with Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, there was like midnight releases for the toy lines and the collectible lines and everything. Like, you'd go up to Toys R Us or whatever store, Target, Walmart, and like at I think they called it Midnight Madness or something like that, where all of the toys on whatever date it was had come out at midnight to buy. There was, they had trailer debuts on Monday Night Football, and they had this, that, and the other, and it was just big push. This, it almost felt like all you ever saw was, oh, there's a trailer dropping, and there was never any fanfare behind it. There was never any like, hey, we're doing a trailer reveal for the next Star Wars movie on Good Morning America, or hey, tune into halftime or whatever, this big sporting event, and we're going to drop a trailer. It was always just, hey, here's a new trailer.
I think that kind of plays into a couple things, though. I think that, one, this movie did not have the Star Wars feel to it.
That's true. I'll give you that.
It's a prequel. And especially in that situation, that there isn't going to be anything too earth-shattering, so to speak,
right? In the movie. What's going to happen with Han. You know what's going to happen with Chewie. It's just the in-betweens.
And the thing is, I don't think it was so tied into the Star Wars mythos because obviously after you've seen Force Awakens, You know how Han's story ends.
Right.
So thus, why are you that invested about caring about a character unless you're a very hardcore Star Wars fan?
Right. And like I said, I know this is one that I necessarily won't throw into the rotation if I do a rewatch every time, because by and large, this isn't, and I know I said this to a couple people, this isn't Rogue One, where the story of Rogue One ties very heavily into the overall story. It's how they got this plans for the Death Star and what led into the events of Episode 4. This one, by and large, is kind of like a, hey, here's what's going on as everything else is going on.
Yeah, it just kind of felt like it was pieced together after the fact. And, I mean, that's kind of how I felt it. Now, am I saying this in a bad sense? No. But I guess for me, if you're going to reinvent something, you're just tying in, like, loose ends from Star Wars canon and kind of hoping it fits.
Sure.
They did an okay job with this.
Yeah.
Like I said, the movie is fun. The movie is definitely fun to watch. But like I said, for me, it felt too Disneyized. And for that aspect, the characters, other than Han, Chewie, and Lando, everybody else you knew was kind of expendable because they've already disappeared from, 4, 5, and 6 for the most part.
I mean, this is something that I know the fans of Star Wars: The Clone Wars ran into with the Anakin Skywalker's Padawan, who they go, oh, well, we all know she's going to die. She's not in Episode 3. And spoiler alert, she doesn't die.
Yeah.
You never know with these things. They're very adept at making you think someone's going to die and then they don't. I mean, case in point, Darth Maul. I mean, but for me, if I had to rank it, it's probably middle of the road in terms of the movies. It's not real high. It's not the worst. It's middle of the road for me.
I would say it's middle too. I mean, like I said, it's a fun movie. I recommend going to watch it once. I mean, depending on where you go to watch.
Right.
It's not going to be the blockbuster. You're going to be like, this is the greatest movie ever.
No, I mean, I can see if you go to see it with your friends, and then maybe if you had a parent introduce you to the Star Wars movies, then you take, your mom or dad or whoever took you to see your first one initially, you go see it then. I can understand that. But, and I know I said this the night it came out, I enjoyed it. It was great, but, it had its issues. Let's not beat around the bush. But it's not something I'm going to go see 4, 5, 6 times.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a train wreck movie by any means. Not saying the movie train wreck. I'm just saying, it, like, for as much drama that happened behind the camera.
Yeah, I mean, you're firing 2 directors. What was it, like 3 weeks before they were supposed to be done filming? And then there's the stories of Alden, the gentleman who played Han, supposedly having an acting teacher on set, and just everything that was supposedly going on behind the scenes. It wasn't the best movie, but it was enjoyable.
No, I mean, if there's so many rumors coming out of what was happening, you can't even believe half the stuff you hear.
Yeah.
All you knew is there was a lot of, I don't want to say distractions, but I think that's probably the best word, from fans really going, okay, I'm really excited to see this, because a lot of it you're hearing, you're going, why do I want to go see this train wreck?
And I know there was a lot of my friends on Twitter who, that first trailer came out, they weren't excited for it. It really wasn't until the second trailer that they're like, okay, I'm a little more into this.
Yeah, because you finally saw the finished product, because everybody's heard so much bad publicity for it.
It's almost impossible to keep that negative stuff out of your head when you're judging something.
Yeah, and especially it's going to linger in, and you're kind of going, okay, what am I watching, and what do I going to expect? Because I think what happened is, once it got announced Donald Glover was going to be Lando Calrissian, that turned a lot more attention to the film in the positive. Mm-hmm. Because, and by the way, in the film he was fantastic.
I swear to you, I want to read. I'm hoping that when the commentary comes out when this comes out on Blu-ray, I want to know if that was actually him in the first scene or they just used audio from Billy D. Williams, because holy crap, the first time he comes on screen and you don't see him, you just hear him. And I know more than one person has said this online. A lot of people thought that was Billy D.
It quite possibly could have been. He did such a fantastic job that he cemented his role in there. I think it was one of the strengths of the movie. Because everything else you kind of saw, it was the smuggler deal, and you kind of knew how it was going to go down when they first tried doing the train robbery. And how that botched. Right,
and they deliberately brought up the rival group that, oh, you didn't factor them in for this. Have you factored them in for the last? You didn't factor them in for the last scenario. Did you factor them in this time?
Yeah, I mean, there was just so much that, I don't know, like it just kind of felt rushed at some points. And like I said, it was very Disneyized in the sense that it kind of you kind of knew what was going to happen without officially seeing it yet.
Well, I don't know, the Kira thing, her double-crossing Han at the end kind of caught me by surprise.
That was, I would say, probably one of the better turns in the movie, because everything else looks straightforward.
Because I figured it was going to go, okay, there was an obvious love interest between them. They were making out in the middle of the Falcon. I figured it was she was either going to get killed off, or she was just going to go, hey, you know what, this is fun, but I got to go do my own thing. You know, I've still got whatever I'm dealing with in my past. Did not expect her to turn on Han.
No, but it definitely added something to the film, and that was a nice change because when they started saying, who's working with Crimson Dawn there, and it turned out to be Woody Harrelson's Beckett, you kind of knew it was coming. You knew he was going to be involved. And like I said, when they telegraphed some moves like that, I think it really hurt the film. I don't think, though, it was a bad film by any means.
No.
I mean, it's entertaining. Is it a must-watch?
Nah, I think if you're a big fan.
I think if you're a big fan of Star Wars, you should definitely check it out and make your own opinion. I think it adds a lot. If you're a huge Han Solo fan, it'll add something to it.
Yeah.
Because you get to see the Kessel Run. You get to see how he won the Millennium Falcon, and you see the first incarnation of the Falcon.
Yep.
Obviously, it's going to go through changes before...
A little bit dirtier.
Yeah, before New Hope happens. So it's just, there's a lot more that it's just kind of, I'd say it's a nice canon film, and it adds a lot if you're really fans of the older characters. Moving forward, though, where do they go from here? We're going to talk about that next segment. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPHEE. You're listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition.
Hey, I'm Mike Pappy from Rye Bread, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Coming back, talking a little Solo here on the ODPH Entertainment Edition. Now, the movie itself was kind of a highly debated movie. That there's some people that really liked it, like Pat and myself thought it was very fun. I know Bright Guy Signal has a blog up, and you can definitely read his review of the movie as well. But overall, I think that this movie had a lot of eyes on it, and I think the negativity maybe has taken away a little bit of the luster of the movie. That it didn't debut to a box office record, per se. That it was kind of it didn't have the best fan reaction coming out the gate. And I think that being said, I think it kind of took away from the overall premise of the film, which is just it's a nice companion piece.
Yeah.
So that being said, they did have some movie announcements come out this week that, at least in heavily rumored, some names are getting attached. Boba Fett, the baddest bounty hunter in the entire galaxy, is finally going to get his own solo movie.
The baddest bounty hunter with a reputation that he can't back up.
Oh, he'll back it up, my friend. You'll see it in this movie. It's rumored to be directed by Logan director James Mangold.
Which I think is a great choice if that is true and that does end up happening. You know, he's obviously shown his talent with Logan and everything that came in with that. He can make it very gritty, which I think when you're dealing with Boba Fett and kind of his history and, you know, some of the stuff he gets into, it's not the happy-go-lucky, hey, well, we're going to go do this today. Hey, everyone's okay. Smiles, everyone. Let's go get drinks. No, this is... He's been through some stuff. He's seen through some stuff. He's very weathered at a very young age, and he's not afraid to do what he has to.
No, they need to fully establish it because I know that there's a lot of Boba haters out there.
There's people who... It's probably one of the more characters that I think there's probably about an even 50-50 split on that they like him or they understand it, but they just don't care.
That is the case. I think that's probably very nicely put because I am Team Boba. I'm super excited about this because I want to see him finally tear loose and have his own solo story to tell.
I mean, I understand the luster for him, but for me, and this is knowing everything that's fleshed out with the prequels and the Clone Wars and what have you, I just don't connect with it because for me, when he's actually the guy in the armor, he really doesn't do much. I mean, Nerdist has got a great video on this. Everything that was kind of cool in BA about him was old canon that got retconned. So you look at, and sure, they tried to give him a few things in the new comics, like, oh yeah, he got the drop on Luke Skywalker, but Luke Skywalker was blind and still managed to get rid of him.
So he has the Force.
You know, his claim to fame with the old canon was he escaped the Sarlacc twice. Okay, well, to this point in the new canon, we don't know that. There's somebody wandering in the books, wandering around Tatooine with his armor, but nobody's quite sure if it's him or somebody who just has it.
Now, they have not released any details of where this movie is going to be set.
No.
So this could be after Return of the Jedi, and then kind of goes from there. Are they going to touch upon the canon? Is that worthwhile to do? I mean, there's a lot of different directions they're going to go in because now...
I think if they go anywhere with this film, it's going to be in between the two prequels and the original trilogy, because as it stands in canon, and I could be wrong on this, he had Slave One, his ship, during the Clone Wars. It was his father's, then it was his, but it got into an accident and crashed, and he lost it. And to this point in the canon, he has not got it back. Okay. So it could be a scenario where we finally see how he gets that thing back and then goes on missions or what have you.
I kind of want to see what happens. I mean, my own personal fan opinion is I kind of want to see what's going to happen after Jedi, because I want to see him emerge from there. And then what goes on after that, I think would be kind of something cool to see.
So they're hinting at stuff. Like I said, there was one book, I want to say it was one of the Aftermath books. I could be wrong. But it was one of those, there was somebody, they never said it was his armor, but they kept making mention of Mandalorian armor, and it was on Tatooine, which, to my knowledge, there was only ever one Mandalorian with armor on Tatooine. And somebody was wearing the armor, but they didn't outright say it was him. They also didn't outright say it wasn't.
No, and I think that this is one thing that having the prequels or having the side character movies is going to help explain a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of necessary. I think if it's done right, I think they can definitely work. I think there's a market for them.
Oh, there absolutely is. And if I had to do some fan casting, which I don't normally do, but I'm going to, depending on when they put this movie, if they put it in the right timeline, Daniel Logan played him in the prequels. He is the right age. If they choose to go between episode 3 and 4, he's the right age to play him now.
It would make a lot of sense to do it. I mean, I don't even know where you go casting. I think you can go a lot of different directions.
Sure.
I mean, it would make sense to do that, and especially with how the character is going to be portrayed, it depends on where they want to stack them.
Right, and Daniel Logan has said, and you can look this up in interviews, Daniel Logan has said for years, if they ever want to do a Boba Fett movie, call me, I'm willing to do it.
And I think that's great that a character or an actor wants to do that, because especially it's been so long since that now you're saying you still want to go get involved in it. And I think they would understand the pressure of pulling the character off.
Sure.
Because especially with the fan base as rabid as Star Wars, you really have to nail it out of the park. Otherwise...
Well, oh, yeah. Well, and I know Boba's backstory in the prequels isn't the most popular thing in the world, but that's nothing on Daniel Logan. That's more just how they wrote it.
But there's also room that they could retcon that and just write something completely new for the movies.
There is also that possibility.
See, that's where I think is going to come into work, because the character, like I said, it depends on what side of the fence you're on about Boba. This could actually really elevate his stock in a lot of Star Wars fans' eyes.
See, but the thing of it is I don't think they'll take away his past and what happened in the prequels, because he gets a lot of that grit from what happened. He gets probably 75% of that grit from watching his father's head get cut off at the age of like 9.
Oh, I'm sure. But this is where characters can really develop and kind of go in their own direction, because obviously with the end of episode 9, the Skywalker story is done. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be room for others to grow in that space.
Sure.
Would Boba be one? That could be another one.
It'd be interesting if he had a family or something, and then it was kind of following the Fets.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something like that. I mean, there's just a lot of different directions they can go, because the other character that's been heavily rumored to have a spinoff coming, now it's not been officially confirmed by any means, is Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi more so than Lando.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, there's been a lot more names thrown out there. So I guess let me ask you, the Star Wars guru that you are, who do you want to see?
I would like to see Obi-Wan Kenobi, simply because of the fact that Ewan McGregor has said he's willing to do it, and there has been nothing, and I mean capital NOTHING, from either Disney or Lucasfilm. And as the old saying goes, silence speaks volumes.
That would be something to watch. Now, where would you cast him before A New Hope?
I would set it sometime in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, because you've got that time period to play with. Obviously, he's going to be on Tatooine, but really, there was the one book by John Jackson Miller titled Kenobi, which I recommend. It's a good book. It's a fun read. You don't really need to know anything about what was going on in the books then. It's his time on Tatooine and kind of what happens with that. I think that would definitely be interesting, because with the Jawas and the Tusken Raiders and whatever other bounty hunters like to show up on the planet, you can definitely do something with that.
I think it would make the most sense, because I don't think you want to go anywhere before Phantom Menace.
I think if the only other place you could go before Phantom Menace is maybe explore some of his adventures with Qui-Gon when he was learning, because I know that is something that really hasn't been touched on.
I mean, that would open an opportunity to do. I mean, I think
because you could then go, show younger Yoda and get Yoda involved, and you could get some of the other old Jedi involved and really explore some stuff that hasn't been touched. Now, obviously, the one they would have issue with is possibly bringing in Count Dooku, because unfortunately Christopher Lee passed a number of years ago. But it'd be interesting to see him do.
I mean, would you want to see Admiral Thrawn in there?
Thrawn would be interesting to see. That's another character I would like to see, simply because if you think of other franchises where you have a general or a war-minded person where they're like 9 steps ahead of you, he's probably about 12.
I think that would be something to touch upon too, because I know that at least from the Star Wars fans I talk to, that his name is one of those highly debated, like he needs to be included into the Star Wars movie universe or he's just kept for canon.
Well, I'll say, because as it stands in the current canon, the end of Rebels, he went off into hyperspace with one of the main characters, and he's still alive, presumably. We're not quite sure.
Yeah, and I think that would add to another factor of if you really want to expand the Star Wars mythos, but it also depends on what you want to do.
Right.
If you want to just develop the characters that you're now seeing in the later trilogies, like Poe, or if you want to see a Finn spinoff.
I you know what would be interesting now that I'm thinking about it is have Poe and those resistance forces have them go up against Thrawn. Because Thrawn is the type that he can have you trapped and have you encircled around a planet, and he'll let you go because he sees ahead and he knows I'm going to let them go now, but they're going to lead me to this, which is something I need more than I need them right now.
But to tie this segment up, though, before we close it out, Solo has kind of set the benchmark for how side movies are going to do outside the Star Wars universe. Is it a fair judgment to say that this one was a bomb or a complete success? Time will tell.
Yeah.
Because I think there was a lot more factors going into it. But we've also named a ton of characters that could work, gave you some scenarios that we think would be the best fit for it. But overall, if they decide to continue this route, they do know where they went wrong with Solo and where they can improve, and they're going to take their time developing it. But what characters do you want to see on the next Star Wars spin-off movie? Is Boba Fett your cup of tea? Is Lando Calrissian the one you want to see? Is Thrawn? We want to know. Hashtag ODPHEE. Hit us up. Let us know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Sitoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
Coming back for another segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition. Now, we've been talking heavy on Solo, but it's been a busy month for movies. We had Avengers Infinity War kick off the start of the month of May.
And kick the door off the hinges.
Yes, technically it was April, but it still carried through May.
Yep.
Then you had Deadpool 2 come and crash theaters and just leave everybody laughing hysterically.
So
and
crashed carrying chimichangas and katanas.
Yeah, it's just completely, the opposite of what Avengers should be, but it definitely is a great film. And then you have Solo come out, which, I guess was lukewarm response at the box office. Dare I say, do you say that was film-goer fatigue?
Maybe. I mean, you did it. It was in the span of like a month. So it was a lot going on, and it's, oh, hey, you just got done processing what happened in Avengers Infinity War. Hey, here's Deadpool. Oh, hey, you just got done seeing Deadpool. Here's Solo.
Yeah, it's just a lot to intake at once, which, I mean, for moviegoers like myself and Pat, I would say, this is nothing for us. This is no fatigue.
No.
Because we go hang out at the movies a lot with the rest of the panel.
I would say I'd be fatigued if it was like one came out on Monday, another one came out on Friday, and then the third one came out on Tuesday the next week. That might be fatigue,
Yes.
but for this case, no.
Because now there's going to be kind of a little drop-off in your comic book superhero movies. The next one on Bat should be The Incredibles 2 on June 15th. Ant-Man and Wasp is next on July 6th. Teen Titans Go, the movie, is July 27th if you want to go for the younger audience. Plus, you throw in a factor of the new Jurassic Park and the Mission Impossible movies if you really want to kind of stretch it outside the normal
Ocean's
box.
8 coming.
Ocean's 8. So, Pat, let me ask you, which one are you most excited to come see?
I know the easy answer is Ant-Man and the Wasp. You know what? I'll go with that one. That was one that I went into. I know I had to ask you who the heck he was, what the heck his powers were, because let's be honest, when it comes to my knowledge of the Marvel superheroes, which was basically cartoons in the 90s, he wasn't featured all that heavily, if at all. So, and I know the first one definitely exceeded my expectations, which were kind of low because I wasn't really expecting much. I wasn't going into it going, oh, I hope I see X, Y, and Z. So I'm definitely looking forward to it just because I hope it can live up to, if not exceed, the first one.
You know, I still am blown away that in this day and age we're going to see not only an Ant-Man movie, but an Ant-Man sequel.
I'll say, because you think about it realistically. Okay, go on the street, do almost like I forget if it's, I think it's Jimmy Kimmel who goes up to on the street and asks people questions and see if they know him. Go up to any person who really doesn't know comic book movies or superhero movies and go, hey, do you want to go watch a movie about a superhero whose power is he can shrink and grow really big?
Yeah.
They're going to be like, what? No.
I mean, this is completely geared up for the younger audience. I mean, at least for me, that Ant-Man and Wasp, I mean, his powers, he shrinks and he talks to ants and can does, can grow at the same time too. He's always just been a really puzzling hero. And if you really want to dig into his back history, you can go Wikipedia and Google that as well. Especially because this is the second Ant-Man. This is not the first one. Hank Pym is the first one. That's even more of a messy background. But Scott Lang has always been kind of the fill-in guy. He's never really been a standout hero in his own right. And, I mean, Paul Rudd has done an excellent job, making me a fan that did not care about this movie originally coming out to go, okay, you did your thing.
He definitely makes a very relatable character.
Yeah, and especially with the sequel now, because it's going to be post-Civil War.
Right, it's post-Civil War, pre-Infinity War.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little time confusing. And to see how it kind of plays out, I know they're doing the Ghost as the villain, which is more of an Iron Man villain, and has been kind of a very tricky background in recent years involving the Thunderbolts.
I got to admit, every time I see a commercial where they're showing the Ghost as the villain, I think I'm looking at a character from Destiny.
It might look like it.
It looks like something out of Destiny, and I'm always like, wait, is he fighting Guardian from Destiny now? Wait, what?
It's been a very big upgrade since his origin in the 80s, I believe, 70s or 80s.
It's a cool-looking costume. It looks awesome.
Oh, yeah, they did a heck of an upgrade, because if you look at the original one, not so much. But this one is definitely, and I know that the background in the comics and in the movie is going to be a lot different than what you normally would see from him. But I know that there has been a huge upgrade since they put him on the Thunderbolts team. So moving forward with that, it's going to be kind of interesting to see. And as for me, I mean, I would say that is probably the one I'm looking forward to, but I'll even go on a limb that I'll say Teen Titans Go, the movie, is definitely, I was laughing more at that than I thought I should have, because they're playing a lot of smart comic humor with that. So that one, like I said, I don't want to keep talking about Ant-Man. I'm going to bring up that one.
Sure.
That I think that plays right into the fold of what a lot of comic fans think, because they're introducing the Teen Titans, that they want to have their own movies because that's the only one that's taken care of. They're referencing a lot of DC comic films.
Yep.
That, I give them credit to do, because to kind of laugh at how their history has been, DC that is, and to really kind of make, no pulling punches on the jokes.
I'm saying, because that's easily, some of the jokes I know that have made the trailers are jokes that, were they to be screened by Warner Brothers, that Warner Brothers could absolutely turn around and go, no, you can't put that in. And understandably so.
Yeah.
But they're not afraid to let them in. They're like, all right, we can laugh at ourselves. We know everything hasn't been the perfect match we hoped it would be.
No, and especially because they're going to introduce Slade as the villain, because they don't like saying Deathstroke, which I completely get, as the major villain, and now giving them a reason to establish themselves as superheroes. And the thing that cracked me up more than anything is they kept saying he was Deadpool. Because if you know the history of Deathstroke and how Deadpool is basically a merger of him and Spider-Man.
Pretty much.
And just the fact they did not let it go, I was dying laughing, because that's such an inside joke.
And if memory serves, they have an entire ad running on TV and online about this.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's, everyone thinks I'm Deadpool, but I'm not Deadpool. Deadpool's me.
Yeah. And it's true, though. It's true. If you go back and look at the history of the comics, Deathstroke was, in the late 70s, early 80s, when the Teen Titans had their run, when it was Wolfman and Perez, Deathstroke was the guy. And that whole story, the Judas Contract, I mean, just read about it. That's all you need to do. That's one of the more iconic stories of all DC comics, even all comics too, just how that pulled off. And just to see that all go to fruition, and just how Deathstroke was the main bad guy there, and then kind of disappeared. I don't want to say fell off, but Deathstroke is kind of a tricky character to write because he's essentially, what if Batman and Captain America were merged, and just you had the super strength and super martial arts, but you were working for evil, and you were just a high-paid mercenary. Mm-hmm. And just to see how it plays out. I mean, Manu Bennett has done an exceptional job on Arrow as him, so that makes more sense. But just to see how, with Deadpool now exploding and people are saying, oh, well, it's just a ripoff, it's like, if you're a hardcore comic fan, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And it's hysterical to see that everybody's playing jokes about that.
Yeah, I will say the other one that you shouldn't sleep on, I'll go non-comic movies, Won't You Be My Neighbor? The documentary, biopic, or what have you, about Mr. Rogers. Of course, I grew up myself, like I know a lot of people grew up watching Mr. Rogers and feeling like he was one of my friends. I'm very interested to see kind of into the backstory of that whole show and everything about him because it's looking very good and I'm very interested by it.
Yeah, that one by far was exceptional. It really kind of was a nice change of pace for your summer movie going theater.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, for me, and I will go public with this, I have zero interest to see Jurassic World, the sequel. I could care less about that. And for me, it's like, I'm just trying to see what else is coming out in the summer, because I know in the fall, you got Venom coming, you have Aquaman.
Yep,
man. The Spider-Man animated movie is coming out.
That'll be interesting.
Summer. Yeah, with Miles Morales being the lead role. There's so much more coming out late year that for like comic fans like we are, there's not going to be a lot lined up. And I know that there's going to be like your big summer action blockbusters like Mission Impossible, the latest one to come out, which has Henry Cavill with his mustache.
Yep, the Mustache Gate.
Yeah, Mustache Gate. And like I said, you have Jurassic World, which, like I said, it's doing nothing for me.
I'll go see it, but it's probably not going to be like a opening night type deal, unless somebody I know is going and, hey, you want to go see it? I'll go see it. I'll go see it, but probably not opening night.
No, I mean, it's going to be something... I just, like I said, I was not impressed with the first one. I know I catch a lot of heat for that, and I'll stand by my guns on that one because it was just too generic for me.
I'll say for what it was, I enjoyed it. Was it the best thing in the world? No, but I think what I enjoyed most about it was the callbacks to the original Jurassic Park, like when they get to that original lab area and they play the music and you see the truck from the first one. I was like, all right, it's good nostalgia feel. I kind of like this.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I just, like I said, I checked out and I have no desire to go back and check in. That's my opinion of it, though. But, what's yours? What is the movie you're looking forward to most this summer? Or dare I say the rest of 2018? We gave you our picks. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPHEE. We're going to take a quick break and close out the show when we come back.
Hi, this is Mike C. from I Am Horror. You're listening to the ODPH, the most killer podcast on the planet.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition. Pat, what you got for those one-shots?
So I think the only thing that comes close to me as much as I love Star Wars would possibly be the James Bond franchise. And we got a little bit of James Bond news.
Break it down for us.
So, of course, Daniel Craig is coming back to play James Bond. I know it was up in the air a little bit after Spectre. Would he come back? Would he not? And he was saying, no, I'm never coming back. But to that, I always say, you're asking him too soon. Because the thing with the James Bond movies, in case you don't know, is they're not like some movies where they film a bulk of it on studio sets. They go to the location. So if they're filming, like I know in Spectre, they were filming a skiing scene in like Switzerland or the Alps or something like that. That wasn't in a studio. They were there. They go to the desert, someplace. They're there. So it's a very grueling, very exhausting schedule. So when you're filming something every day for like 9 months for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, if somebody asks you if you're going to do something, of course you're going to say no.
Yeah, you're just going to be worn out.
Right. So coming back for Bond 25, Daniel Craig's 5th movie as 007, which will put him in second/third all time, depending on how you look at it, in terms of acting, only behind Roger Moore and Sean Connery. who both played the role 7 times. This one will be directed by Academy Award-winning Danny Boyle, and the original screenplay by Academy Award nominee John Hodge. Production is set to begin on the 3rd of December, 2018. Now, the big holdup with this is, I know Spectre came out, I want to say it was like 3 years ago. The big holdup with this is the international distribution rights were up.
Okay.
And there was a bidding war between Sony, Universal, MGM, and a third foreign company. It was like Japanese or Chinese, or it was a foreign company that, I'd never heard of before. So that was the big holdup. And because of the money and the worth that the franchise has garnered since Daniel Craig took over, there's a fair amount of money backing up this thing. But that has been settled. MGM will continue to distribute the film stateside. Internationally, it will be distributed by Universal. So now that that's all set, the film will start filming on the 3rd of December. So presumably they're working on a script if they don't have one done. If I had to ballpark it, and I don't know, if I had to ballpark when this movie's going to be coming out, probably early to mid 2020.
Okay.
Just because of it starting in December, these shoots typically go about 9 months or so. It's a longer shoot schedule than a lot of movies, simply because they've got to get all the equipment. They've got to get all the sets and what have you set up, and the cars and the explosions. It's not an easy film.
No, especially when you deal with a globe-trotting super spy.
Yep.
You go to different countries, you go to different places, you go to a lot of different scenarios to establish the espionage factor of the movie.
Right. I'm just thinking of Spectre because that one sticks out in my mind the most. They were in Italy. They were in London. They were in they were riding on a train in the desert. They were further in the desert. They were back in London. So it's, you're jumping all over that part of the hemisphere.
Yeah, there's so much going on that it really kind of establishes the character, because it's not just set in one location. You don't know what's going to happen. And it really just kind of adds to the mythos of James Bond, because if you're going to have one super spy, you're going to have him stay in one place at one time.
Right.
No, you're going to have globetrot and
And I think the very interesting thing with this one is they, of course, brought back Spectre, which I know that hadn't happened for a while because there was rights arguments over who owned the rights to Blofeld and Spectre. That's why he fell out of the movies in the mid to late 70s. But they got the rights back, they brought him back, and they didn't go the typical Bond route, because if you go back and you watch the older Bond movies, especially when Blofeld and Spectre got brought in, you'd have a Spectre plan. He'd foil the plan, and Blofeld would get away. Wash, rinse, repeat. This one, I thought he was going to get away. Didn't. He got arrested. I think it's going to be very interesting to see where they go from there with he's in prison. Is he going to be the villain? Is he going to be working the strings from jail? I don't know. I'm excited to see it, though.
It's always going to be something to watch. I mean, James Bond is like a global event, so definitely see how it plays out. I'm excited to see it. I think Daniel Craig has definitely earned his chops there as the lead role. And to see him come back, I mean, it's definitely good to see, because, when they kind of do quick switch-ups, it's going to happen. Oh, yeah,
it's going to happen. I mean, the one I can think of most famously, and I think any Bond fan can think of most famously, was when Sean Connery said, I think it was after You Only Live Twice, where he's like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. So they brought in George Lazenby. He played it for one movie, and then Connery came back and was like, oh, you know what, I want to do one more.
Yeah, I mean, you just get so worn out of that grueling schedule that it only makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it only makes sense. And I always remember back to when they announced, I think it was like 2005, 2006, that Daniel Craig was going to be Bond. And it's the first blonde Bond. And I'm going, what? Why are you making James Bond blonde? Every other actor's been, dark-haired. Boy, I ate my words.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely encompassed the role, and he definitely made it his, his version of Bond, which works.
And it definitely brought it into that 21st century feel where, sure, there's some moments that are a little quirky, a little kooky like the old movies, but it definitely feels a little more grounded, a little more action-packed.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'd be something to check out. Now the distribution rights are all taken care of, you can just go back to watching a great film.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Can't go wrong with that. So for my one shot, I'm going to be promoting a show that is having its season finale on the CW this week.
Uh-huh.
That as soon as it goes to Netflix, please give it a watch. You will not be disappointed. iZombie is having their season finale. They're coming back next season. I don't know if it's a mid-season replacement. They did get renewed, but it's going to be the final season. Rose McIver and company have done an amazing job revolving the story of Liv Moore, and I mean, granted, you see The Walking Dead, you have a version of a zombie. This one has been completely 180 of that. That Liv has is infected with a zombie virus that goes around Seattle, and instead of becoming a mindless zombie, I guess I'm trying to find a good word to say other than that, but it is what it is. She is a forensic scientist there. Thank you, at the Seattle PD. And basically, when she has to eat a brain, she gets the memories of the victim. She's helping solve a crime. This is how this played out in the DC Vertigo comic a little bit. I mean, it takes elements from it. So if you really want to go back and research the iZombie comic, you can. But it's now spiraled into, dare I say, a complete different show.
Sure, it's kind of taken on its own path, its own wings.
Yeah, because now all of Seattle's infected. It's kind of been quarantined off. Then you have humans, you have zombies. But it's not your typical show. And they've really kind of made it just evolve into a very different show than what it originally started. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. But it's so more complex. You see the growth in the characters. The writing on the show is so smart.
Yeah.
That you see how every loose end is tied in. That every character you meet can come back and plays off each other. And the relationships are just that to watch. And the gentleman who plays Blaine, and I don't have my phone in front of me right now, he steals every scene he's in. That you should go watch this. The season finale is tonight, where you find out where Liv has now been smuggling humans into Seattle and infecting them with this zombie virus, and just the ramifications now that she has been caught. This is going to be must-see TV. I highly, highly, highly recommend you check it out on Netflix when it comes out.
Well, and of course, if you are looking to get into the series, don't forget CW and Netflix do have the deal that 2 weeks exactly for when the season finale airs, the entire season will be up on Netflix. Like I know Legends of Tomorrow's already up there, Black Lightning's already up there, Flash and Arrow should be up there within the next week, I want to say.
And dare I say, I think it's very cool on CW, and I know ABC did this as well, that for shows that were on the bubble, they're allowing them to come back as a half season to tell their final story to sign it off to the fans.
Oh, yeah.
I think CW is doing an awesome job with that.
Well, and I think it's also an awesome job with the deal, because I know this particularly, like my brother I know, doesn't always get to watch Walking Dead currently because he's not always caught up, because AMC doesn't have the deal with Netflix like CW does. So he's got to wait until basically almost the season premiere to watch last season.
Yes. So anytime you can really do that, it's only going to help. And I'm telling you what, the story of Liv Moore is definitely something to watch, and just see the character growth of every character from season 1 to now. It's going to be like, what just happened? And it's definitely worthwhile checking out. So I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I've already said it enough. I can't say it enough more. But that's all we got for this week on the ODPH Entertainment Edition. So for Padawan J,
thank you.
I'm your host, Kenna. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition. See you next time.